Hey all, welcome to the contact management project slash needs org deprecation AMA. I I never came up with a better name for it. That's just its name. So to kind of kick it off, I'm going to show how we would set up a contact management project using a fun little test org that I have made. And then after that, I'll kind of stop the share and we'll open it up to just general questions, comments, concerns, all that fun stuff. So let me share my screen. There we go. You should see a web browser. It says JSON test org. Can someone confirm that for me?
Yes, it said that.
Awesome. Okay, so to get started, we will go to this lovely group that we have made. I know, original naming, ZD org, global orgs, and you're going to create a new project. So you want to actually do it from the template. So create from template, go to group, and we have contact management project template. I know I'm original on naming. For our naming, we're always going to use the org ID, and we will simply call it org, except we spell correctly. That's always important. So call it something like that. That is perfectly fine. It's private. We don't need to put a description. If you so feel inclined, go for it. But we will create our projects. And we're going to let it import, which takes very little time. And it'll start us out with the contacts MD file or contacts YAML, and it should set up a bunch of settings for us. But to be thorough, we're always going to double check things. So going over this quickly, we have the training doc, which goes over each of these piece by piece, but project visibility should be private. Awesome. Enable CVE, that's disabled. Forks are disabled. LFS is disabled. CICD is disabled. LFS is not disabled. So click that. The import doesn't always import all the settings. So if you see one that's not correct, correct it. CICD is disabled. Registries contain disabled. Analytics disabled. Requirements disabled. Security compliance, wiki, snippets, package registry. Pages, monitor, environments, feature flags, infrastructure releases are all disabled. None of these are required for the sync project, so we just disable all of them. So we're going to go ahead and save our changes because we found one that was not accurate. Next, we need to check the repository settings. So branch default is master. Cool, that works. We'll look under protected branches. And here we need to make sure all our settings are correct. So we have our branches master, allowed to merge should be maintainers and developers. I only see maintainers, so we're going to check that. And allowed to push should be maintainers, developers. We're going to check that. These two settings should be disabled. This auto updates upon change, so we're good there. And now we're going to go check our project files. So contacts MD, it's a nice little markdown file that kind of walks the customer through every little nuance of it. And then YAML, we've got our very blank thing right now. So the first thing we are going to need to do, well, actually, let's set up the webhook first. I feel like that's the better place to start. So for our webhook, our URL, we're going to grab this thing from our file. It'll basically link it to the sync project. We would replace token with the actual token, but I'm not going to do that since this is a recorded screen, recorded.
Wait, sorry, where did you get that URL?
It's in the training document under webhook setup. And I've got that linked in our Google Doc. For our project ID, get that right here. So replace project ID with that. For now, I'm going to set that to just a bunch of X's. And we need to check the event push events because that's what we're doing. We're just going to do all branches, it's fine. But essentially what this will do is trigger this webhook on a push event, such as a commit, which is what we're really wanting to do. At the bottom here, make sure SSL verification is checked, and we will add the webhook. And verify everything looks good there. Obviously, we would want to edit the token being used, but should work for what we're doing here. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to our files. And what I'm actually going to do is behind the scenes go edit that webhook so that it has the correct token, so that when we do all this stuff, it'll actually work, because not a great demo if it doesn't work. Cool. So what we now need to do is edit our contacts file. So what we would normally do is talk with the customer, figure out the baselines people to set up. This is a test org, so there's not a customer to speak to, but we'll open the web IDE. Under org ID, we're going to use the org ID, which is also our path. And then for contacts, we're going to set up some contacts. So we'll do name, Jason test, email, jason@example.com. I don't like typing a million times, so I'll paste this a couple times. And we have Alice test, which is Alice@example. And we have Bob test, which is Bob@example. Cool. So we've got these three people. They're going to be added as contacts. So we'll create our commit. I'm going to do a bad thing and commit straight to master. But if we go back to this, we should see. Okay, cool. So we've got this set up. This will trigger that pipe. A webhook is now triggered to cause a CI/CD pipeline on the ops instance to run. And that is going to grab these people and do a sync. Some important things to note there. It only grabs the first 50 people. So you could add 5 million contacts here. It's only going to grab the first 50. That's because that's kind of our limit for how many contacts you can have in org with this setup. And the reason for that is API lines. You can do 100 changes in an API call. So 50 removals, 50 adds, that's where we kind of came up with the number 50. That would add up to 100. So in the wildest scenario, you're removing all 50 of your contacts and adding 50 new ones. That's where this would kind of come into play. Now, traditionally, when we set this up, we would take whomever it is that is approved to do these changes, so like Jason@example, and we would invite them to do that. You can go under projects, information, members, and you can invite members, and you'll paste in the email. So, Jason@example.com. You'll want to add them as a developer. And you don't need to worry about that. And then you would click invite. I'm not going to, because I don't need GitLab to send a pointless email to a non-existent address that can't route anybody. But that's what you would do to invite them. With that done, we would go back to our ticket, fire off our macro, letting them know. It's going to tell them, hey, it's set up. You should have gotten an invite. Let us know if you see any issues or have any questions. Cool. So that is what a setup looks like. And removal is even easier. You just delete the project. So any questions about what the setup looks like, how the removal works, any of that?
What happens if I, as a support ops person, or I, as an evil customer, change the org ID in the contacts.yaml to a different yet equally valid org ID?
It will not work that way.
Why?
While it does take the YAML file, it is also taking the project ID from the webhook, and the project ID is how it's actually determining your org's ID. So you could do all of that. It won't do anything for you. Just like you could, in theory, figure out how to access the webhook and change the project ID, but all you're then doing is triggering a sync on someone else's. So I do have a bunch of redundancy set up to prevent you from being able to do that. You can manipulate it all you want, but the result is either you're triggering your own sync or you're just triggering somebody else's sync. You're not actually going to be able to modify anyone else's account. The org ID is just there for posterity's sake. I didn't like the YAML file just having an array in it. Originally, I was going to do the name, but names change all the time for companies, so it could get confusing if somebody's like, well, now my company is called Bob's Burgers, not Bob Burgers. And it felt like just opening a potential avenue of confusion by doing that. So we just went with the org ID for a placeholder there. Any other questions, comments, concerns, random thoughts? I've got a comment in the chat. Okay. In the chat, I posted the link to the Zendesk org if you want to go look at it and see, hey, look, now they have 3 users. So that's how it would work. If the users don't exist, the script will create them. If they do exist, it will update them. Cool. So let me go ahead and look at our questions. The only question I see is from Lyle, but anybody general questions about the contact management setup or our deprecation of needs org or anything in general? Awesome. I'm going to take that as I did a really good job communicating. That is not what it means, but I'm going to take it as that way anyway.
Hey, it looks straightforward and I understood it. So
my aim for this was a boring solution. At first, I had some very complex ones, and my thought came back to, right, but can I explain this simply? Because if I can't, I'm not doing this correctly. So in the end, we went with something relatively straightforward and easy to explain to somebody.
I do want to ask, because I want to be sure I understand the whole picture. Everything that somebody does in there impacts Zendesk, right?
Yes, that ops project that the webhook goes to is got scripts to actually do the user syncing.
So you said to get rid of it, you just delete the project.
Right, at which point...
What happens in Zendesk?
Oh, at that point, they've got the contacts as per their last sync, and that is just where they're at. From that point forward, the customer would go to the current method, which will soon be the old method of submit an ops ticket, talk to us, we'll make changes for you.
Thank you.
And the current method isn't going anywhere. That will remain. This is just our option of, we heard you want more users and we heard you want to maintain it yourself. Here's the solution that we have for you if you want to do that. But you can always roll back to, we'd prefer just to ask ops to do this for us. Cool.
And it's available to all customers?
Yes, we're not restricting the access to this. All paid customers can request this be set up. There could be a need to iterate that on the future. It's hard to say offhand, but right now we are optimistic that sure, any paid user can request this. If there's a need to restrict in the future, that will be a whole nother discussion and we'll go that route. But basically starting the 4th of February, any user can request this.
So YAML files are easy to muck up. Customer goes in and adds a bunch of people, but does it wrong. What happens?
The script will try to read the YAML file. It'll error out because it can't parse a YAML file that has incorrect syntax. It'll fail pipeline. Ops will be notified via email, and then we can open a ticket to the customer saying, hey, here's what we noticed, and kind of take it from there. So ops will be very notified that something has gone wrong so that we can reach out to the customer and say, this is what we noticed. Would you like our assistance? Or was this intentional? You just wanted to stop the sync for whatever reason? Or maybe you just wanted to see how responsive we actually were. But I did set the script to hard fail on a failure to parse the YAML context. That way we get a failed pipeline email, we get notified, we can reach out to the customer and kind of go from there. Whether that be we reach out on maybe their organization project and open an issue saying, hey, we noticed this thing, would you like some help? Or maybe we'll open a ticket. Not fully defined as of yet. I would assume tickets would be our starting point, but I like that ability to be able to open an issue to talk to them there as well. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Doesn't just have to be the contact management sync. If you have questions about how we're deprecating needs org or what that looks like, more than willing to answer those too. Awesome.
Sorry, I have a question.
Okay, go for it.
How can I monitor the number of customers taking advantage of this?
As say the beginning part again.
I'm just my user story is as a director, but
like
in general,
the
like
contact management sync in
yeah,
specific.
I'm curious, like it would be interesting to see, you know, like today we have 10 orgs, next week we have 1,000. Cool.
Well, in theory, you could go to the group and see a count of how many projects there are, minus, I guess, 2 technically. One for that test project, but that will be gone when this all goes live, and then one for the project, the project template. Sorry, I think the right wording. We have the collaboration project, which we set up in the org. We also add an org note. So in theory, all of that would also be searchable. So we can get a quick count via simple Zendesk searches. If there becomes like a greater need to track this down to a, I don't know, like hourly basis or something, we could maybe add a field on orgs where we just a checkbox that says is using, is not using, whatever. And then we could do it that way as well. So we can use Explore to do a bit more metrics on that if we needed to.
It's just curious in the interim. I think it'll probably stabilize pretty quickly, but yeah.
Yeah, and then we will have a new field for customers when they file tickets asking for this to be set up. So we'll also have that tag, which you can very easily say, this is how many tickets have come in about creating this or setting this up. I think there's also a tag for removal, for questions, all that fun stuff. So we do have that ability to further kind of go down it of how far down the metrics rabbit hole do you want to go? Because we can go pretty far. If you want to see the SSAT of customers requesting this, that will be something that you could obtain. Glad you asked, because I'm sure somebody with the data analytical mind was going to want to explore charts at some point.
The question will come at some point. So, can you use does it have to be within this group, or for customers that have an existing account management project, can they set this up?
Yeah, we can technically set this up on any project. The way this is set up is to be able to work with collaboration projects that already exist. As of right now, all of those will get escalated to me because there is a lot of nuance on how those are set up. A lot of things we have to discuss with the customer. We've seen collaboration projects where everyone is already an owner, and obviously that would not work with this setup. So that's something we need to discuss with the customer of, we could downgrade all of your people to developers. Are you okay with that? We've seen a couple collab projects that use simple CI/CD for notifications. Those would obviously no longer work. So a lot of those have a lot of nuance that we have to discuss with the customer to figure out what works best for them. We've had it go both ways of, yeah, no, that's fine, downgrade us, restrict us, that's cool, set this up. And others who said, can you actually just set up a whole new project for this so that we don't have that issue? But yeah, this is built to be scalable to work with other projects or other groups, other namespaces, other pathing. As far as why that one specifically, we needed a place to put them. It seemed to work. Cool. Anybody else? All right. Well, if you do have any further questions, we do have a feedback issue that you are more than welcome to comment on. You can also reach out to the ops channel, or you can reach out for like a coffee chat with me if you want to discuss it more in depth. I'm always game to do that. But yeah, thanks for attending, and I hope you found this educational and informational, addressed any concerns that you had, all that fun stuff. And I look forward to seeing y'all in the queues.